Hi, I'm nervous, and welcome to part 2 of my series analyzing the FNAF movie characters to see what they may be able to tell us about our in-game characters. If you missed part 1, you don't necessarily need it to watch this video, but I would recommend watching both to get the full picture of how all of these characters connect to each other. As always, whether you're new or returning, I would appreciate you taking the time to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss future uploads. And hit the like button if you find yourself enjoying the video. In my last video, I did a brief summary of the FNAF movie, but I focused on Mike and Vanessa's roles since those were the characters we were focusing on in that video. This time, I'll summarize the movie from the perspective of today's subjects, Abby and Garrett. Abby's older brother Mike takes on a job as a night shift security guard at Freddy's. This wasn't an ideal choice for him since he is Abby's caretaker after their mother passed away and their father is out of the picture. She is only 10 years old and can't be left alone. However, Abby and Mike's Aunt Jan is attempting to get custody of Abby, so he hires a babysitter and tries to make it work. Abby is a fairly introverted child who spends a majority of her time drawing and talking to her imaginary friends. We come to find out she is actually communicating with the spirits of the dead children who were killed at Freddy's in the 80s and stuffed into the animatronic suits. After Aunt Jan's plan to sabotage Mike's employment fails and the crew she sent to mess up Freddy get messed up themselves, including Abby's babysitter, who was secretly a spy for Jan, Mike is forced to take Abby with him to the pizzeria. She is overjoyed as she knows this is where her friends live. At work, Mike goes to sleep as he does nearly every night at Freddy's. We learn that he is attempting to relive the night his younger brother Garrett was kidnapped many years ago when Mike was around 12, Garrett was around 4, and Abby was not yet born. Garrett was kidnapped while the family was camping by a man in a black car. However, this man was never caught or identified. Mike is attempting to remember who it was that took his brother. It seems Abby has become aware of this event too, even though she wasn't there and nobody in the family ever talked about specifics. Mike finds a drawing of Garrett being taken in the car, and since he knows she has a connection to the kid's spirits, whom he has also seen in his dreams where he is remembering Garrett's disappearance, he asks her to see if they know who took Garrett. Vanessa, a local cop, finds out Mike brought Abby to the pizzeria and warns him to keep her away.
You can do whatever you want with your own life, but if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
He has Aunt Jan watch her while he goes to work, and this makes Abby very upset as she misreads the situation. That same night, Golden Freddy appears in Abby's home, knocks out Aunt Jan, and brings Abby to the pizzeria. Unbeknownst to her, Mike made a deal with Golden Freddy in a moment of weakness, agreeing to trade her for a better memory of Garrett and his parents he can visit every night. He attempts to undo this, but it's too late. Chica leads Abby to a spring-lock suit and attempts to stuff her inside. Mike frees Abby just in time, and with the help of Vanessa, they stop the animatronics from taking Abby. Vanessa also explains that the spirits don't realize that they were murdered by her father, William Afton. So they listen to William, thinking that he is a friend. The movie ends with William Afton showing up at Freddy's in the spring Bonnie suit to kill Mike. Abby realizes that she can tell the spirits what happened by drawing the truth. She hangs the picture up to show Freddy and the others what really happened. They turn on William, activating his springlock suit, and drag him into a back room. An epilogue of sorts reveals that Abby is now acting more social, and that she hopes she and Mike can visit the spirits of the children again sometime. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to analyzing. Before we start, I do want to just say that in my last video, I explained that I believe every character in the FNAF movie represents two characters from the games. And that is the logic I will be sticking with for this video. To start off, we know very little about Garrett. He appears to be a likely candidate for the puppet, with his disappearance being associated with a car and presumably the hidden message at the end of the credits that spells out, "Come find me." We can even speculate that he is a child of Henry. This seems to make him a good candidate for our Charlie/Charlotte from the games. That being said, his short, slightly curly brown hair creates a slight nod to the crying child, along with him being Mike's younger sibling that Mike is tasked with watching before something bad happens to him. One thing I also want to point out is that there seems to be something significant about his toy plane, as it appears multiple times throughout the film, including in Abby's drawings, showing Mike and her inside. Were I to speculate, which I am, the color scheme of the plane and Garrett's red shirt may suggest he's connected to Balloon Boy, and it's possible his soul is able to travel in a similar fashion to Golden Freddy. All I can really say about Garrett is that, as I've said in another theory, he may represent the idea that the crying child was kidnapped by William Afton and is actually Henry's child. Additionally, there is a chance that he is showing us that Balloon Boy is haunted and/or more important to the lore than we have often theorized. Fellow theorist Rytoast has a video all about Balloon Boy if you're interested in learning more. I will likely have a lot more to say about Garrett once the second film is released. Abby, however, has a lot to unpack. As I've said, what I've learned from this movie is that every character seems to be a blending of two other characters, but Abby seems more complex, as her character borrows a number of elements from the books. However, the fact of the matter is that Book Charlie and in-game Charlie are very different. If we are examining our in-game characters, using Book Charlie to compare Abby to in-game Charlie seems confusing. For the purposes of not overly muddying the waters, we are going to focus on her in-game parallels only: Crying Child and Circus Baby, aka Elizabeth Afton. The Crying Child comparison is very similar to Garrett's. Mike is her older sibling and he is tasked with looking after her. Later in the movie, his choices nearly have her killed by a springlock suit, which you could suggest mirrors Crying Child's death shown to us in FNAF 4. Her connections continue though, as we see her consider the animatronics her friends, with a particular connection to Golden Freddy. Crying Child has a similar connection to his plushes, with the Fredbear plush seeming more conscious than the others. The way that Abby communicates with the spirits using play in drawings feels similar to the way the Crying Child communicates with his plush toys. At the very least, it just seems like the two of them use escapism to help them cope with their current situations. While timeline-wise, it would be difficult to suggest that these are the missing children speaking to Crying Child, I find it hard to dismiss just how alike these scenarios are. Both call this group their friends. Fredbear and Golden Freddy manifest as they please, and both sit on the respective child's bed and make less than favorable remarks about Mike.
Just eat some food.
You're sitting on my friend. My friend says you're an idiot.
We even see Golden Freddy use the information they have to influence Abby in a similar but admittedly different way to Crying Child. The moment Abby believes Mike is giving her away to live with Aunt Jan, she lashes out by blacking out Mike's face from her pictures. This shows a deep fear of abandonment in Abby that manifests as anger. To me, that is what makes her susceptible to manipulation by Golden Freddy. The Fredbear plush in FNAF 4 also seems to have a level of influence over Crying Child. Basically, if Scott wasn't trying to get me thinking about Crying Child in these moments, he failed. Upon every viewing of the film, I only find more things that make me feel the two are connected. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention something I noticed while watching the movie for this video. The scene where Golden Freddy manifests in Mike and Abby's house while Jan is watching TV in a recliner and takes Abby to Freddy's to get spring-locked bears a striking resemblance to Midnight Motorist. Not a one-to-one recreation to be sure, but certainly similar enough to catch my attention. While it's possible and even likely that this is just a reference, if it is trying to tell us anything, it is that the crying child is the kid being talked about in the Midnight Motorist minigame. And take it with a grain of salt, but to me, if this movie could give us any clues about the crying child, it seems like at least at one point he was heavily influenced by a spirit. And if I had to guess, it would be the vengeful spirit. But of course, Crying Child is not the only character comparison we will be making today. So let's move on to Circus Baby. Now, we all know Abby's name is an anagram for baby, and she is often depicted in the color red, which is associated with Circus Baby. In addition, she and Baby have these similar short bangs, and when she's not in red, she's wearing pink, which is associated with Elizabeth. Not only this, but when she is nearly stuffed into a suit, it's one that resembles Ella, a doll from the books that Henry uses to try to create robot versions of his deceased daughter. This is where things get a bit confusing because we now start seeing a number of similarities between Abby and Book Charlie. Ella being here at all signifies that the books are significant, but clearly the timeline is different because Ella isn't a little doll. She's a full-sized spring-lock suit. To me, this still wraps back around to being a connection to Circus Baby, considering that the adult-sized suit in the books is used by William to create Baby. To clarify, I'm not ignoring the Book Charlie connections or suggesting that there's nothing to learn from them, but that's not what this video is about. I just need to explain the springlock suit's design origins to show how it's connected to Circus Baby. Now, let's move on from symbols and visual similarities and into Abby's character. At face value, she doesn't really align with Elizabeth or Circus Baby, but when really taking time to break down her character, it becomes more apparent. Elizabeth clearly adores her father and wants to do right by him, but she cannot help but break his rules, going places she shouldn't and getting too close to the animatronics, which ultimately gets her killed.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? She's so pretty and shiny. Daddy isn't watching. Don't tell Daddy that I'm here. I wanted to watch your show too. You're wonderful.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
This parallels very well with Abby and Mike's relationship. She wants to stay with him specifically, and it's very clear from her drawings that she holds him in high regard. Her teacher notices this too, and I feel it's worth mentioning how specific this is to Mike. There is not one single picture in the entire movie of Abby and Mike's parents. This could relate to how she reacts to thinking Mike's abandoned her. Once she believes that a person is gone, they do not have a place in her drawings. Regardless, the point here is that she very specifically wants to be with her brother, even if she struggles to follow his rules. There is also the connection to Elizabeth with how drawn to the animatronics she is. When she's around them, her caretaker's warnings mean nothing to her, and she chooses to disobey in favor of playing with them. Abby is very similar in this regard. When Mike takes her to Freddy's, despite his multiple demands that she stay in the office, she ventures off to go be with the animatronics. She talks to them and sees them as wonderful, even after one of them hurts her. Meanwhile, in the background, Freddy and all the others are hoping to make her one of them. That being said, for all of the connections I can make between Abby and Elizabeth, there doesn't seem to be much new information to learn or a big story to tell. thinking about Elizabeth as much as I have lately has brought a lot of new thoughts up about the character, enough for their own video, but nothing the movie specifically gave evidence towards. It did, however, spark a question. The main difference between the two girls is that the children's spirits call to Abby, while Elizabeth simply seems fascinated by Circus Baby. If we are to believe that the Fun Times contain the remnant from the original haunted animatronics, it would be worth wondering, what if Elizabeth was also somehow lured in by the voices of the missing children, or even specifically, the vengeful spirit? Now please remember, this is just me thinking out loud. As I've said previously, using the movies as evidence is a shaky practice. I do believe we can understand characters better through the narrative of the movie since we get so much more story written by Scott Cawthon. But at the end of it all, if you can't point to in-game proof, it's going to be hard to convince anyone. Remnant alone adds major complications to things, considering it seems to make the spirits even less aware than they were before. The amount of pieces that all need to be fit together may be more complicated than the simple answer of Circus Baby was made to be appealing to children, and Elizabeth is a child. I think it would be compelling if the vengeful spirit played more of a role in leading William's children to their doom in the games. I just don't have enough evidence to back it up. Maybe future FNAF movies will give us more insight into characters like Charlotte, Elizabeth, and the crying child. For now, I really appreciate the way that the FNAF movie has given me new motivations to go back and examine the old games. If you watched the movie, what connections did you make to the in-game characters? Or did you see this movie as telling a brand new story only inspired by the game materials? I would love to know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't. I upload every Friday and would love for you to become a part of the nervous system. I'll be back next week, but if you can't wait, there are videos on the screen right now just for you. I also recently collaborated with another channel, Susanna Murphine, where we talked at length about VeggieTales. So if that interests you, I'll have the video linked in the description. It was a lot of fun to film. Okay, bye! Rolls throughout my summary. Hello?